And then I was meditating one day and I'm deep meditation, and the voice in me says, build an ark, the flood is coming. And I sat there and this download came through and it began to show me the massive disruptions and transformations that are unfolding. And it came with an energy. This is how I knew it was more than just my imagination. You guys don't understand. Something big is coming. It's happening. This is going to be bad. This is going to be big. This is going to be a world disruptor. We need to get ready.
What is up, Mindset Hackers? Thank you so much for joining me here today. I am over the moon, so excited for the guest that I have today. His name is Derek Rydall. Derek, it is so good to have you back on the Mindset Hackers podcast. I am pretty pumped because I know you've got a topic that you want to discuss with my audience. I think it's so relevant, and I think it's something that can be really spooky for a lot of people, but also provide a lot of opportunity for those of us that want to emerge and tap into the more abundant parts of us that lie within each of us. Tell me a little bit about what you've been thinking about lately.
Yeah. So, I've been studying and aware of technology innovations and AI and all these different things for, several years. I was a computer geek as a kid, but then I kind of grew out of that into more artistic and spiritual pursuits. But I'm still aware of it. And I even have written, over the last couple of years, I wrote a couple novels, not yet released, on this very topic. And then just recently, a couple months ago, I began to hear people talking, and they were describing scenarios that were unfolding now that were literally out of the novels I had just written, which at the time I wrote them were still fiction. And I'm like, oh boy, this is soon to be a textbook if I don't start talking about this, because what was fiction is rapidly becoming nonfiction. And then I was meditating one day and I'm deep meditation, and the voice in me says, build an ark, the flood is coming. And I was like, what, who, what, where, what's happening? And I sat there and this download came through and it began to show me the massive disruptions and transformations that are unfolding. And it came with an energy. This is how I knew it was more than just my imagination. It was an energy that I can only say is like a prophetic energy. I've only had this happen a couple times in my life. It happened before the pandemic, where I had this feeling in me and I found myself almost like a prophet, like almost like having to shout it, from the rooftops, almost having to shout it on the street corner. You guys don't understand. Something big is coming. It's happening. And I felt almost embarrassed. I was like, have I gone off the deep end? And I felt like one of those guys on the street corner, the end is nigh. And that's just not like me. I can get passionate, but I'm not like that. I'm not like the sky is falling. I'm very optimistic, and nobody believed me. They're like, oh, you're making too much of it. It's just some little thing. But no, this is going to be bad. This is going to be big. This is going to be a world disruptor. We need to get ready. And it turns out it was right. But it was before everybody else was knowing that. So there was an energy to it. And the same thing now has come through around this. And the basic notion is that AI and technology and all that has been in the pipeline for years. It's been in development for many years, but there's an inflection point, and suddenly it's exploding in ways that are exponential. Even the experts and the creators of it do not understand how it's working. They call it a black box. And again, as I said, many of the things that I was writing about are coming true. And I started to see that the disruptions are not just going to be, I'm not just talking about like the Terminator level, fear of AI, like AI is going to take over and kill us. There are, by the way, half of all the AI experts say there's a 10% chance that that's exactly what it's going to do. And I just think that's interesting. Half of all AI experts say there is a 10% chance what we've just created is going to kill us. Now, if you were going to the airport and you were about to get on a plane and you read a thing that half of all engineers of this Boeing 747 believe there's a 10% chance that plane's going to crash, would you get on that plane? Would they even let that plane get off the ground? There is no way. And so So that's pretty crazy. And there's now an open letter out there saying from thousands of the top AI executives, researchers, and engineers that are saying this is an existential threat that is greater than a pandemic and even as bad as a potential nuclear war. So there's that. But what I became aware of, especially for thought leaders and entrepreneurs and coaches and healers and teachers and all of that, is that what AI can do already is replace most of you. And that right now there's about 70,000 songs uploaded to Spotify every day. That number with AI assisted, music generation, all that could easily grow to 700,000 and then 7 million. Right now, there's about 500,000 to 1 million books published every year. With AI generation, I just saw something today of a whole new prompt engineering package. With a single prompt, you can create an entire book. And so with AI assistance, that number from 500,000 to 1 million to 10 million to 100 million books. Right now, AI can take 3 seconds of our voice. We've already given it too much. We're done, man. And it can literally create the new AI Simon podcast, and nobody will know that it's not you talking. That's already there. Go look at the Joe Rogan AI podcast, where Joe Rogan is interviewing Sam Altman, the creator of OpenAI, and Trump, and there is no human beings involved in this project, other than the guys behind the scenes telling the AI what to do. The whole thing, the script, the voices, all AI generated. And if you didn't know it, you would not know the difference. And it's just getting started. So now instead of however many millions of podcasts, imagine a world with 100 million podcasts, with 100 million books a year, with 100 million songs a year. Not only that, imagine all the songwriters and singers and authors that are long since passed coming out with new songs and new books because they can be generated now with AI. And now imagine, Elvis with a new album with songs by Kanye, or, Dickens writing a new book, based on today's world, whatever it is, whatever you can imagine, it's coming. And so there's a deluge of content coming. Video, audio, music, books. Imagine now where everywhere you look, there's a book about everything instantly, where AI can generate mass books, where for everywhere you go, you get offered a book as a way to get opted into a program, until the meaning of a book is gone, until you can't tell the difference between, is this live or is this Memorex? Is this real? We have an election coming up, at least at the time of this talk, in about a year or so. You think elections in America, you think elections have been crazy before? You ain't seen nothing yet. And so all of this is happening. In fact, there's even a guy who was running for governor where this whole audio was released of him talking about stuff, and it hurt his campaign so bad he lost, and it wasn't him. It was all fake. So fake news, post-reality, where you cannot tell fact from fiction, a deluge of content where you can't even swim through it to find easily what you need. You think you have decision fatigue now because you go down the aisle and there's 100 different boxes of cereal. Imagine when there's, as I said, 10x of everything. So that's what's coming. And none of that's fiction. That's already happening. And what I realized was it's not happening in 100 years like the Industrial Revolution took. By the way, before the Industrial Revolution, 100% of people were agricultural, cottage industry. After the Industrial Revolution, 1%. So 99% of everybody's way of life was destroyed and replaced. Now, it was done over 100 years. So even though it was very disruptive, we kind of adapted. This is going to happen and could happen over the next 10 years. And we could start feeling the floodwaters licking at our boots over the next 24 months. And so when I got all this, there was this urgency in me, which was, I have to shout from the rooftops to all of my friends and colleagues and fellow thought leaders and change makers and entrepreneurs and creators and content makers. You guys, you've got about 24 months. If you're just like playing at this, or you think you got all the time in the world, or you think you can get by just doing good enough, if it's good enough, AI will do it. If it's anything anybody else can do, AI will do it. You've got about 2 years, 24 months to discover what it is about you that nobody else can do. What is it about you that is irreplaceable? What is it about you that is your truest purpose and your truest genius? And cancel every other plan and do that. Because you've got about 24 months to build your ark, to build your moat, to build your radio tower above the floodwaters so that you have a signal amidst the noise.
I love it. I think you're spot on. I think, and from somebody with an outside perspective that I feel like I'm pretty tuned into things too, but I agree with a lot with that. I actually was thinking about, I called this content inflation after listening to your episode, because it's like with
That's
money,
good.
when it gets printed relentlessly, it causes currency to start being devalued. It makes it harder to get the same amount with your purchasing power. And with
Yeah.
content, I think you brought up a really, really good point. We're going to have 100 to 1,000x as much content out there, and that's going to make it even harder to stand out. But I also think
But
that
you just
there's
said
a
something great. Your dollar is worth less when there's inflation. Whatever you create is going to, by definition, be worth less when there's a content inflation. That's brilliant.
Absolutely. And it like people will take shortcuts too, and they'll bypass their own authenticity and creativity because it seems so tempting to just whip out a blog post in 30 seconds. But that's adding to this content inflation and keeping them away from the abundance of their internal power and their internal passion and their authenticity. So I
Yes,
see some opportunity here too, though, with an abundant mindset. And
of course.
I
Yeah,
really see a big tie-in with the concepts that you and I have discussed before. Your views on abundance, your views on emergence. I want to hear how that fits in, because I'm kind of feeling like, with any big shift, there's, if you listen and you don't bury your head in the sand, and
yes.
you're open to tapping into, a higher consciousness, there's a lot of opportunity. So I'd
100%.
love to hear a little bit more about where your thoughts are of positioning yourself and
Yes,
building the arc as the flood goes.
absolutely. And the only reason I start with the other part is people need to actually, I want to get people's attention, and I want to make people sure that, oh yeah, the AI thing, sure, there'll be people, you can make books easier, blah, blah. And I want people to feel the gravity of the shift that's happening and that's coming. It's not, there is nothing more radically important than that we understand. And it's not just AI, it's quantum computing, it's the convergence of all the different technologies that will radically uproot and transform every industry and every area of our life. But the good news is it will also very potentially heal most, if not all, diseases, right? The AI protein folding that Google now has just done the work of 1 billion years of research, 1 billion years in like a few months. So the possibility is amazing. We could enter a whole new renaissance, or we could enter a dark age, and the choice is squarely with us. And it's true that during great cataclysmic shifts in the world, that's when the greatest opportunity exists. That's when the greatest magnates and masters and moguls and titans are born, when they, are willing. Noah started a whole new world, if you believe in that, as a metaphor, because he's like, oh, I better build an ark. I better bring all the things that are valuable aboard my ark so I can transport them to the new world. And so we have to think of it for ourselves is what this could usher in is a focus and a prioritization on what we could become less human, or this could be an evolutionary trigger to become more human and humane than we've ever been. that this can be an evolutionary trigger where being authentic is no longer an elective, it's an obligation, it's mandatory. Because if you're not who you really are, you're done, you're toast. So becoming authentic, knowing yourself and being true to yourself, being as important as breathing, or you're not going to make it. Like, like from an evolutionary standpoint, when it's a matter of survival, we adapt. And the ones that don't, they're in the, they're left in the wreckage of history. So there's some core things that will be necessary to survive and thrive, what I call the whole new human 2.0. And that is values that when you look at the greatest people you admire the most throughout history, they have these on some degree. They have discovered what is really about them that is unique and unreplaceable, as I already said. They have the courage to be true to that no matter what. They have a great ability to be a truth seeker and a truth teller, and to some degree a wisdom keeper, so they can discern the signal through the noise. They're connected to their instinct, their intuition, so that they are living more from insight than eyesight. In other words, they're Jedis, right? And so they can see through the noise, through the dark, through all the temptations and things. They're living like a pilot who learns to fly. You got to learn to fly by the instrument panel, not by what you see out the windshield, because you're going to be in the clouds a lot. Those are the pilots that are the best pilots. Those are the leaders that are the best leaders, because they're not being influenced by the world. They're being influenced by a vision and a deep evolutionary impulse within their own soul. And they're leading from there. Those are the ones that influence. Those are the ones that change the world. Those are the ones that carve a new path. Those qualities are essential to survive. And if you get that, you will evolve in what could have taken you decades or lifetimes. You could evolve in the next few years and become a Jedi and become so tuned into who and what you really are, what you're made of and made for, why you're really here, and be so confident and poised and connected to that juice, as I say, to drink from the fountain of you and find that you are already immortal. You can do that. That's the first really good news. And then the second thing is, therefore, as a result of that, what you will begin to create is your destiny. And of course, there's a lot of ways you can leverage these tools to be more productive, prolific, creative. Having an AI co-pilot is going to be as common as having your iPhone, where it'll do all kinds of things for you, and a lot of stuff that is just you don't need anymore. Just like our washing machine does the work of a couple servants now, just like our car does the work of a bunch of horses now, just like this right here is doing the work of a bunch of servants who would be scrolling, scribing, delivering it by horseback to you and then back to me over months. It's all giving us the efficiency and productivity to do what matters most more effectively. So all of that is possible. So exponential growth in our work, in our impact, in our abundance, in our creativity, all of that.
I want to know from you, I know you've done decades of coaching and helping people with personal development, and you are an expert in so many areas. Human behavior, I'm sure, is one of those. And
Yeah.
it's interesting to see what people do when like COVID comes up or the Great Recession, and there's one of your core principles is to expand in times of contraction.
Yes.
And I think there's some disruption too. AI has a lot to do with this, but like the channels where people were educated, a lot of those rooted from the industrial age, the college degrees, and getting into $300,000 to $500,000 of debt and being forced to pick a degree. When you're a kid, and you don't even know what you want for yourself, and you
I'm
don't
still
understand
figuring it out, man.
What's that?
I'm still figuring it out,
Right. And so I get excited by some of this stuff because I know there's opportunity. I've learned to trust myself. I feel like I have some of those Jedi skills, but it's taken a lot of time to cultivate. But I also know that people tend to put their head in the sand when stuff comes
Yeah.
up. But what, to somebody listening to this, how can they tell if they're more likely to try to go the other way? And, give me some suggestions or some tools of how a person who might be really fearful of this can tell that, like, hey, this isn't something to be afraid of if you do this. What would you suggest for somebody to start, getting on the right side of this?
Well, first of all, fear, other than the rare instinctual fear, is always a messenger that tells you you're believing a lie. And that if you are willing to look at the lie and look for the truth behind the lie, the fear is telling you you're believing a lie. Here's a truth you are being called to apprentice under. So whenever anybody is afraid, that's the evolutionary clue that you're stuck in a worldview that's too small for what's trying to emerge in you. Let's discover what's the truth that's trying to emerge, and now let's apprentice under it. So there's always a message, whether it's fear, anger, grief, whatever. It's trying to point us towards what's trying to be born, what's trying to emerge. So that's the first thing, is discover what your story is that you're telling yourself. I'm not going to make it. There's not enough to go around. It's too late. What's the point? Everybody else is ahead, whatever the story is. And then you have to do the work to discover, but what's a bigger truth that is trying to emerge in me? Or what would I have to believe in order to be excited and inspired? Well, I'd have to believe that there's plenty of opportunity. Okay, that's a good start. I'd have to believe that I have greater potential in me. That's another good one. And you can start to discover, it's like zing, zing, and you get excited. And that's telling you, you feel that expansion, right? Now, you'll also bump into, yeah, but what if there's not? Yeah, but what if I can't? That's okay. But come back to, but what if there is? But what if I can? And then you have to apprentice under that. Okay, if I believed that, what would be the vision I would create for my life? Who would I be willing to become? What would I be willing to do? And you want to write that down and now craft a new vision and a new story based on that deepest desire, what you really, really, really want, not what you think you can get, not what you think you have to do, not merely what you think is possible. And now you're living more from vision. You're being a vision holder, not just a problem solver. You start to get pulled by a vision rather than just pushed by the pain. But you have to ask the better questions, and then you have to cultivate that story and that vision. And then you have to go, if I was living that, if I was that person, who would I have to be? How would I think? What would I focus on? What would I talk about? What would I do? How would I feel? The habits of thinking, feeling, being, and doing. Those are the quadrants of character. And character determines your destiny, not your conditions. And you determine your character based on building it. So then you go, okay, well, I'd be focusing on what I can do, not what I can't. I'd be focusing on what I do have, not what I don't. I'd be focusing on what's possible rather than what's not. And I would be doing it rather than just talking about it or thinking about it. And you start to discover there is a clear path. And you build a new pattern, a new program, a new structure or schedule or practice, and then you start living into that. So that's that, without getting into all the granular elements of that, that's in a nutshell how you start to turn the ship around. And as I like to say, it's in the valleys that we build our mountaintop mindset, right? Not when we're on the mountaintop. You ain't getting to the mountaintop unless you've already got the mindset. You build the mindset in the valley by falling in love with the mountain and by climbing and building up and becoming the mountain climber that you want to be. And then every mountain is just an opportunity to get stronger in climbing. So that's a mindset that's built in the valley. And then you strengthen it by climbing the mountain. And you've already got the mountaintop mindset before you get to the mountaintop, or you would never make it. You'd give up beforehand. So, there's when Michelangelo sculpted the David or the David, he didn't sculpt him like they used to do, where he's on top of the victim with his sword in the air or whatever. He sculpted David in the moment when David knew that he could and that he would slay Goliath. In the moment when David locked into the mindset, Goliath is done. I am a victor. That was before he even stepped on the battlefield. And in that moment, Goliath was toast. So we can build that mindset. We can build that heart set. We can build that character now. And in fact, all the challenges coming at us, the fears, the doubts, those are all part of an evolutionary support system. Just like you go to the gym and suddenly your trainer gives you all these heavy things to lift. You're like, I can't lift that, man. He's like, of course you can. That's why you're here. Like, this hurts. Of course it does. You haven't done it. Oh, man, this is exhausting me. That's right, because you need to get in better shape. And so you're tearing muscles and you're getting shit thrown at you. And so when the weight's heavy, you don't pray that it's lighter. You pray to get stronger and you do reps. And then you build the habit, you build the infrastructure mentally, emotionally, neuropathically, et cetera. And now you're a vessel that's able to channel more currency, more current, more life force. Not because life doesn't happen to you, life happens through you. Whatever's missing is what you're not generating. The world never has to change. Only you need to be the change you want to see in the world. And then you will be that change and that light, and you will be that pioneer, and the world will evolve and adapt and meet you at that higher level.